Hello and welcome to my channel. I am Zodiac Bandit, and today I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions for the Campaign 4 cast character classes. So with that, I kind of have to make an assumption about what they're going to be playing. Are they going to be playing Dungeons & Dragons 5e? Are they going to be playing the 2024 rules? Or are they going to be playing Daggerheart? Now, something in the universe is telling me they're not going to be playing Daggerheart. I think they've already committed to Daggerheart being like a mini-series sort of deal. I think Matt is going to be running a mini-series in like the setting of Umbra soon, and I think they're more so going to let Daggerheart be a mini-series thing, kind of like EXU but sort of separate and be its own unique thing, maybe more like Candelabra Obscura. And then for as far as the 2024 rules, I don't think Matt is a big fan of those rules, and just based on a couple of interactions that they had during campaign 3. So these predictions are going to be within the 5e scope of things moving forward. So my predictions are 5e. Let's get into them. Now, for me to make these predictions, I have looked at the past to sort of give me my predictions for the future. I've looked at the history, so you will, and history tends to repeat itself. So with that, I'm looking at the previous characters of everybody that they've played before, looking for patterns, and then trying to predict what class they're going to play next based on those patterns. Now, some people don't have patterns, and some do, but I do think I'm going to be able to predict at least some this time. Last time, if you guys look at my Campaign 3 predictions, I got exactly one correct, and that was Travis. So, my track record for making these predictions about character classes, not very great. Technically, I got 2 correct because I did guess Breus, but I digress. That doesn't count because it wasn't at the beginning of the campaign. So, I'm looking at the past to make my predictions to the future. Just thought I'd put that out there before I randomly started putting out predictions for you guys. And speaking of the only person I got right last time, we're going to start with Travis Willingham. Now, if you look at his previous characters, they're all melee-focused characters. Grog and Chetney specifically are non-magical based ones. Yes, Chetney does have a little bit of magic in him with his brands and his transformation, but he never truly cast a spell that belonged to him outside of a, magical artifact, and the same goes for Grog. There is an outlier, though, and that is the Campaign 2 character of Ford, who was a caster. He was a warlock. He didn't have as many spells as other characters. He wasn't wizard, sorcerer, or druid level of casting spells, but he did have some spells at his disposal and a constant cantrip in Eldritch Blast. And I think he's going to be looking for something similar to that again, because if we're looking at patterns, Campaign 1, an odd number, he was just a straight-up melee fighter. Campaign 2, that's when he became the caster with melee capabilities. Campaign 3, back to just being mostly melee with a couple of magical augmentations. So I think if we're looking for Campaign 4, we're going to have to go to Ford and look at some sort of half-caster based character who can also be a melee fighter. That's why I'm sort of going with Artificer Armorer. The Artificer Armorer both has spells and can be an up-close fighter, but if it really wants to, it can switch its armor set to become a ranged fighter. And I think this is going to be the diversity that he's looking for to have a lot more fun with the character. That way, if he's out of range, he can still do something. If he's within range, he can still do something. I truly think that this is where Travis is going to go, because he wants that magic, but he still wants to be melee, and I think no one else has really played an Artificer outside of Terry, but he wasn't an armorer. I believe he was a battlesmith. So there is still a difference here, and no one else has played this type of armor before, or Artificer before, so I think it'd be a lot of fun for him to do. Not to mention, his last intelligence-based character was Serret, and we all love Serret. Serret was awesome. So to have him play another high-intelligence character will be a lot of fun. And I also think this character would fit in really well if they go into a future of Exandria where it's advanced in technology quite a bit. He would fit in with a bunch of people around him, and I think it'd be just a lot of fun to see him interact in this way with new lore, new intelligence, new technology surrounding the character. I think Travis would do a great job in this role. And if I were to make a guess for Travis's race, I would probably go with Aormaton. I think there'd be a lot of fun with him being this, technology-based character who has a technology-based being. I think that'd be a lot of fun for him to do, and it would bring Aor back into the fold in some form or fashion, and of course I love Aor, and so does Travis, so it just makes a lot of sense to me. So next is going to be Laura Bailey, and based on her track record of playing exclusively magic-based characters, I'm going to give another prediction of a magic-based character. In the past, she's played a ranger, then a cleric, then a sorcerer, and when she played as Amira in Downfall, she was a warlock. So that only leaves 2 left, wizard, and the one that I'm going to go with, which is druid. I think she has been wanting to transform into a creature as her motif for a very long time. I think she's wanted to do this, but other players have picked it up, or maybe she just felt like playing something else first. When Campaign 2 came around, she wanted to play Jester as a Warlock, but then she wanted to keep the Jester character and sort of keep the, need to have a patron around, so she became a Cleric. So I don't think she's going to go Warlock, and I think she really, really, really wants to play a character who can shapeshift like Fern. I think she enjoyed every time Fern transformed into a character or a animal or something like that, and she wants to be really creative with her own, and I truly think that she wants to play this finally. Now, I don't have a prediction as strong for Laura's character race as I did for Travis, but there are a couple that do float around in my mind immediately. She has played mostly like human-esque type characters and figures. She's played a half-elf. She then played a tiefling, which is the only one that sort of branches out from the path, and she's played a human. So if we look at the pattern here, we have two mostly human things, and then something else that sort of breaks off, going in a different direction. So realistically, I think for this campaign, she's going to play something that's not truly like human-looking, and she'll play something a little bit different. What that is specifically, I don't know, I'm just going to throw out Tabaxi, just to be something different and exotic. She went from being like two common things and then one exotic thing, so I'm going to say something exotic. Maybe a Dragonborn, a Tabaxi, something along those lines to me. And, Tabaxi and Dragonborn just fit, nature-esque more to me than anything else, so maybe. But I really have no strong feelings about her character race. So next up is Marisha Ray, and if we look at her track record, we can see that she has a pattern much like the other ones that I've mentioned before. So her pattern is very simple. She goes from magic to melee, and then she went back to magic, so her next one should reasonably be melee. So she played a druid, she then played a monk, she then played a warlock/sorcerer. So if I were to make a prediction for her new melee class, I am going to predict either a barbarian or a fighter. And I'm leaning toward barbarian because that is one of the few classes who have persistently been around in campaigns throughout all of Critical Role. So the new person saying I would like to rage is going to be Marisha Ray. That is my prediction. I truly think I'm leaning toward barbarian. There's a chance that she goes fighter because she'd rather have like a bunch of attacks, but I don't think many characters are going to live up to Orym or Percy after what happened. Percy was a menace, and then Orym was also a menace, so to have that sort of thing happen again would be kind of boring. So having a new person play a different sort of barbarian would be a lot of fun. Which subclass? I don't know. The only person I'm truly going to give like a subclass to is Travis so far. Outside of that, I'm just giving rough classes. So I truly believe Marisha saying I would like to rage would be a lot of fun, because it also follows the pattern of what's happened in Critical Role just in general, right? We went from Travis, a male player, playing a barbarian. We then went to Ashley, a female player, playing a barbarian, back to Talzin, a male player, playing a barbarian, and now back to a female character or female player in Marisha playing a barbarian. So it fits two different patterns, and honestly, I think it's money. As far as Marisha's character race, realistically couldn't tell you. She went from a half-elf to a human to an undead human. So, it seems to lean towards the human-esque side of things. So maybe she'll go for something a little bit more exotic this time around, but it's kind of hard to predict, someone having basically a straight through line of characters doing this. So maybe she'll go back to half-elf. Maybe she'll be full elf. It's kind of hard to really predict Marisha's, character races, because she could either just stick with the normal path or swing a completely different direction for this one. We then move on to Talzin Jaffe, who does technically have a bit of a pattern to what's been going on with him. So his pattern is custom-made characters outside of Caduceus. Caduceus is the only one who sort of breaks the mold, and noticeably, he's the only one who's like basically all magic based. Beforehand, we had Percy, who is a gunslinger who was created by Matt Mercer to sort of cross over between Pathfinder into D&D. We then have Mollymock, who was a blood hunter, completely created by Matt. We then have Caduceus, who is, nothing created by Matt at all. We then lastly have Ashton, who is a completely made up barbarian subclass, fundamental chaos, and, so if I have to make a prediction, it's going to be a Matt Mercer creation, which then leads me to what I think the class is going to be, which is Wizard. I think he spent a lot of time away from Magic to the point where he might want to move back to it. I think he really enjoys playing Caduceus. That's why whenever they sort of go back to playing as the Mighty Nine, instead of playing Mollymock, he plays Caduceus. I think he really misses playing a magic character, which is why Fundamental Chaos almost feels like a magical like sub-race or subclass. So I think Wizard fits really well for him. And Matt has created 2 Wizard subclasses in the past. He has Chronourgy and he has Graviturgy. So realistically, either one works well because I think they're both Dunamancy based. So, you know, another thing that Taliesin really likes. So if I had to really guess between the two of them, maybe he'll try to mess with gravity stuff because in the past, he's messed with, you know, some time stuff with the Dunamancy. So maybe he'll go in a different direction for his next character, or maybe he'll stick with the time stuff. Who knows? But I feel like it's a pretty good guess for him to pick something that is Matt Mercer created. Now, as far as race goes, he's picked some pretty exotic stuff in the past. He started off as a human, but then he went to a tiefling, then a furbolg, then an earth genasi. So if we're going to continue down the line of him doing exotic stuff, I think a wise old turtle would be a lot of fun to be like a wizard-esque character. I think we need an old character to replace Chetney because there was a lot of fun with the whole I'm an old guy thing. And I think it would just be really fun for like a time wizard to be, you know, a slow animal. I think that'd be a lot of fun. He uses time magic to make himself appear faster. I think that's a lot of fun. Who knows? Probably not going to happen, but it would be cool. Moving on to Ashley Johnson, we have a pattern yet again. She went from a magical-based character to a melee-based character, back to a magical-based character, and this time I think she's going to go back towards melee. Now, I do want to point something out. She was frustrated with magic. She was flustered the entire campaign, and initially when she played as Yasha, things picked up rapidly for her. She was enjoying things much more as a melee-based character, but I do think she enjoys having some magical capabilities. So, my prediction for her being a melee-based character is she's going to be either a monk or a paladin. A monk because they have a lot of special abilities, and if she goes with the Way of Four Elements, she'll literally be casting spells using key points. A paladin because they're a half-caster who relies on using spell slots to amp their damage. So I do think it is very possible for either of these options to be what she plays. That way she still has her melee aspect that she enjoys way more than she enjoys playing a magic-based character. Because also, if you go back to Pike, who was technically also she had the option for melee, basically, as a war cleric. So, I do think it's very likely that she goes down this path, and this way we technically still have a healer, not as much as a healer as, say, a cleric or something like that, but she can still heal, and if she's a monk, she can still heal because there are some weird rules now, but I do think there's a lot of options for her if she goes either way, and I think it could be a lot of fun, and it could play into the new, like, world they're setting up for Exandria. So, I think this could be a cool, fun way for her to go about it. So now I kind of have to make a prediction for what I think her race is going to be. Now, if you look at her characters in the past, we have a gnome. We then move on to a Asimir. We then move on to a satyr. Now, we've gone more exotic yet again. However, if she's going to play 2 characters that are sort of like code-based, right? Monks have a code and paladins have like tenets they have to follow. I think it would make a lot more sense for her to rein in the exotic character stuff and sort of stay away from maybe Fae-esque creatures like Fern was, and maybe try to be less chaotic, and maybe just go with something more bland like a human or, you know, an elf, stuff along those lines. I think stuff like that is more like rein in your sort of personality characters, but I don't know. I feel like if there is going to be a code for her to follow, because these are technically like 2 code-based classes, Monk realistically doesn't have codes, but like martial artists do. So if she wants to go down that route of being a martial artist, I think a lesser exotic character might be up her path. So human, elf, half-elf, stuff like that. We then move on to Liam O'Brien, who also does have a pattern with his characters, but most people who have gone from a magic character to a melee have then returned to a magic and then back to a melee. I think Liam is the opposite, where he starts with a melee in his rogue character of Vax. He then moves to Caleb the Wizard, a magic-based character, then back to a melee character with Orem as a fighter, and then we move back to magic, and there's just something telling me that he wants to be a cleric. There is just some storytelling elements that Liam has been putting forward lately for both Campaign 3 and now EXU Divergence that really leans me into the idea of him wanting to play a cleric. I don't know what it is. I think there's just been aspects of Orym that clearly wants to be some sort of healer, but he couldn't truly heal people all that much outside of giving them his sword, to heal people after they attune to it. And then with his new character Arrow, who was in the past a cleric turned ranger who can still heal people. I think there's just something in the air about Liam wanting to heal things, especially if you look at his last handful of characters who are all broken. For him to play a character who is going to be healing other broken characters, to me would just be a nice through line for his character creation as time has gone on throughout the campaigns. So I think that would be a lot of fun for him to do. To finally play this sort of healing role would just be super fitting after being 3 broken characters back to back to back. And of course, this cleric could still be broken in his own way. If Liam wants to truly continue to depress us, he can with another broken character who heals people and doesn't realize that they need to be healed themselves. So what kind of race do I think he's going to be? Well, I don't think he's going to be anything truly exotic. If we look at his characters, they haven't been. He's been a half-elf, then a human, then a halfling. Not very exotic there, Liam O'Brien. So he could go exotic, much like how Marisha could go exotic if she wants to swing the pendulum in the other direction. So could he here, but I think it's more likely he continues down the path of being, common-esque characters. So if I were to truly pick something for him, again, boringly, I think I'm going to have to say elf. Especially because the way that Matt rules things, if he goes elf as a cleric, he only needs to rest 4 hours. That could be something he does to game the system. And I feel like Liam is probably the only character who does stuff like that. So, yeah, we'll see. We then move on to Sam Riegel, who famously doesn't pick his first character in a campaign. If he has a character who is, at the beginning, it is picked by Liam O'Brien, and if that character leaves or dies, then Sam gets to pick what they do. So, based on that, and based on the idea that we know that he and Liam are pranksters at the table, I think it's time for them to finally pay off a long-running joke that Sam has been trying to do for a very long time, which is for him to be a character named Vix and play as a Beastmaster Ranger. Why? Because he really wants to just irritate Laura, because for a long time he made fun of the Vex and Vax thing, so I think it would be very funny if he were to be a character named Vix, who is a ranger, and that just so happens to be the same ranger class as what Laura used to play back in Campaign 1. I think that would be kind of funny. I think that would be right up Liam and Sam's alley for them to do, but if they don't play a Beastmaster, I'm okay with that. I think there's a million better ranger subclasses that they could pick, most of them from Xanathar's Guide, so realistically, they should probably pick that if they want to make a good character. Yes, they fixed Beastmaster, but I honestly still think it's shit, so best not play that character. So, go with a ranger, just something different. I really do think ranger fits, though, because this way he can still have magic and still be a ranged fighter, and it would be a lot of fun and a little callback to a previous character in previous campaigns, and Sam wanting to make a joke. But now it's time for us to look at the pattern of races that have been picked for Sam to play. So, if we look at Scanlan, we don't know what the pattern was for that. There wasn't really, it was just the first pick. But Scanlan hated goblins. And what was Not the Brave when he played Not? A goblin initially. What did Not the Brave really like when they went to Aor? The Vexian, who happens to be an Aormaton. Jesus, I really struggle saying that. But then, if we look at FCG, who was a Aormaton, what did they really, really, really fucking hate? What one thing that did FCG truly hate? We know they hated it. They loved everything else. They liked everyone else. They fucking hated birds. And Kankus are rather small. Just putting that out there. Kanku. So there you have it. My predictions for the campaign for... Well, who's this? Hiding over in the corner. Oh, it's Robbie Damon. You're right. I should pick for Robbie Damon, shouldn't I? And my prediction for that is I think he really likes being like charismatic characters. So he could realistically play anything that's truly charismatic based. And I think he also likes magic. So I think Warlock, Sorcerer, Paladin, something along those lines could really work for him. But I also think if he didn't want to go on the magic route, he could play a rogue. he could play Swashbuckling Rogue, which is charisma based. So I really just think that he's going to stick somewhere in charisma based on the fact that he really likes playing Bard. So we'll see. I don't think there's enough of a pattern to really go off of for him, as he's only had one like campaign character, and even in EXUs that he's been in, he was the same character. So it's really hard for me to be like, there's a pattern here. The only thing that I can really tell, Bard. So kind of a pain in the ass for me to try to make a prediction on that one. But I do think charisma based is his alley, because he really is a charismatic motherfucker. So yeah. And as far as race goes, again, he only has one. I think the world is his oyster for picking his character race. So we shall see. I think because he picked an air genasi, he's going to go with something more exotic, but I'm not going to make any predictions on what it is going to be specifically. Alright, so there you have it, my predictions for what I think the cast are going to play in Campaign 4. Let me know what you think. I want to know your predictions. Do you think it's going to be 5e like I do, or do you think it's going to be something else? And if it is announced that it's going to be something like Daggerheart or something like that along the line, I'll then remake this video with Daggerheart based classes, even though I'm very uneducated since like early beta of what the classes are like. So, you know, we'll see when we get there how that happens. I did pre-order the special edition for Daggerheart because I want to give the game a chance. I really do. And I really like good looking things, and that special edition did really look good looking. So we'll see. But with that being said, these are my predictions. Oh wait, I do have one more prediction. I do think Matt Mercer is going to play DM. So with that, I'll see you guys on Friday. Peace.